Yes, guys, I'm Si. Welcome to Cardiff City World. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to Thursday Night Live. And I am, as always, joined by Mr. Jamie Anderson. We're going to talk about last weekend. We're going to look ahead to this weekend. We're going to talk about some injury news and answer some questions. Just have a good old chin wag about all things Cardiff City, I think, is always the way. We've got a massive game on the weekend. I wish, James, right? Welcome, by the way. I wish this game was 5 games later. How would you feel about that? Just move it 5 games later, and I think it would just be monumental.
Yeah, someone said that to me on Sunday. They said some people would say just take a point each and then and call it a 0-0 draw. If we didn't have the 2 managers in the dugout that will be in there Saturday, then you'd probably say yeah. But listen, mate, I think whilst it won't be one, I don't think mathematically or whatever. On Saturday, whoever wins or loses, it's going to give you a bit of a kick in the, proverbials if you lose this. Because if you're us and you've been top of the league for so long, if we lose that spot, you feel like, no, here we go, especially with our history. But if we get a 4-point buffer, mate, we'll be singing on Tuesday night up in Barnsley, that's for sure.
Yeah, 100%, mate. I think, look, ultimately, there's 10 games left in there after this. So I think it's not a be-all and then end-all. Like, you could lose Saturday and still win the league. But it's psychologically, I think, ending their unbeaten run, I think that's got some, because you don't quite know how they'll react to that. Because I think, a lot of people, including myself, I said at Christmas, I thought that they would sort of tail off a little bit. And teams like Bolton and Bradford might be the contenders. And fair play to Lincoln. And I think they've evolved as the season's gone. In my personal opinion, I think they got the second best manager in the league. Probably, I think BBM is head and shoulders, obviously, but Skabala and Schumacher at Bolton, I really rate them. And Tom Cleverley, actually, in fairness, there's some good managers in this league, and I think they're managers who will go on and have really decent careers, like in the EFL, and who knows, what else. But it is a big game, and I think when it is a thing, right? And this is a good starting point, I think, is... Can you still hear me, James? Because my screen's just gone off completely.
I can indeed.
That's right, then. I don't know why that's just happened, but I'll keep going while I try and speak, while I can't try and fix it. So my thing with it is, I think BBM and the Cardiff players will be very, very keen to put right what they thought was a pretty off day in the first game. I feel like they will feel that they didn't give a true account of what they are and what they've been all season. And I feel like that's why I think this game will play out a little bit differently to the first game. And look, you can't rule out Lincoln. I just mentioned, I think they've evolved, and we'll dig into that in a minute. But from a Cardiff point of view, I do think that they are very much going to try and set the record straight a bit in terms of how they played, and because that first game I don't think was a true reflection of what we are and what we've been all season.
Yeah, I agree. It was a long day out up in Lincoln. The conditions were horrible. I mean, when that second goal for Lincoln went in, the visibility of the distance away, we couldn't really see it. And we had a few changes that day. We weren't at our best. We probably scored our best goal, or one of our best goals of the season, mind saying that. But that was in that 20-minute spell, wasn't it? Just after half time. But the rest of the game, we huffed and we puffed, and we didn't really do much, did we? We gave that own goal away through Robertson, lucky deflection. But listen, Sincil Bank is probably the main reason why they're up there where they are, because it isn't the best of places to go as an away fan in terms of the atmosphere is really, really good. It reminds me of Ninian Park to an extent, where it's quite a small ground. They've got a lot of fans to the right-hand side who jump around, sing a song, bang the drum all game, and they make it uncomfortable for sides. And for me personally, like I said, I think it was an off day, and it was from where we were, the 20th of December, to we've only lost 1 game since that, which was obviously Plymouth away 2 weeks ago. I think it shows how far we've probably come as well as them, because I think we haven't had it easy, but we've done quite well.
Yeah, 100%, mate. And I think the thing that, we said last week on the show was the way that this team has reacted every time they've had a poor performance or a just I don't know what you'd say, like just a poor performance, poor result, or just hasn't quite been at our best. Every time we've responded in a massive way the next week. And I just thought against Doncaster on Saturday, I thought we were so good, but I also thought we didn't get out of second gear. And you could say what you will about Doncaster's defending, or they weren't very good, but you could only beat what's in front of you. And I just thought we were just really, really good. Even going back to the first sort of 10, 15 minutes, I think it was relatively even. But you look at that block which Dylan Lawler made when the striker was 1-on-1. It was such a vital time, because if they score there and then 1-0, we go 1-0 down early on away from home after the Plymouth result, it might get a bit, touchy and a bit nervy. And he just showed yet again that he's not just about his ball playing ability or whatever. It's the other side of his game. Just ignore that a minute, mate. I'll get rid of it.
No, it's not on there. I think for me, the key thing is this season, when we've had questions, or the outside people have had questions in regards to, especially some of our youngsters, I think they've responded very well, and they've shown their maturity and their development. And that doesn't just always reflect on the player. That's the care that they're given and the nurturing they're given from the people off the pitch. BBM naturally and rightfully gets the plaudits for it, because he's doing a brilliant job. But behind him, there are people in roles that this year are showing that they deserve to be in those roles. Lee Riley, he often does what any good assistant manager does. He kind of deals with good situations and bad situations. He'll take a yellow card and he'll speak to the referees if he feels he needs to. So BBM doesn't have to worry about that. You've got Kevin Gibbons, who is fantastic with it, the fitness and things like that. You've got Scott. Scott is brilliant. He came from Newport at the beginning of the season to us. And, he really, you can see when you look before the games, they've got this individual plan as well as a collective plan. You'll see Joel Caldwell, for example, doing individual warm-ups on the right-hand side, because this year, touch wood as we speak, we seem to be managing our players a lot better than we have. And I know people might talk about intensity and all these things, but if you feel looked after when you go on the pitch, the chances are you're going to feel more comfortable, you'll feel better, and you'll perform better. And last week, listen, it was a bit of a cabbage patch to play on. You can tell it's a rugby league ground as well. But we went there, like you said, after a bit of a slow start, let's say. I think Gabe Osho and Dylan Lawler almost concocted a plan, which was, Gabe Osho, you're going to be the defender, the destroyer. And Dylan, you're going to be the distributor. And listen, you've got to have a mix, haven't you, at the back? And it showed. Alex Robertson's interview, he said he told Dylan Lawler to do the same thing he's done twice this season already. Just look for that ball over the top. And credit to Alex Robertson. Good touch, good finish. And I think that just set us on our way for a great day in Doncaster.
100%, mate. It was a wicked day and thoroughly enjoyable. And look, I fully Lincoln are going to be a whole different kettle of fish to what Doncaster were, and probably to a lot of the teams in the league. You can't underestimate their unbeaten run. It's been sensational. They've won when they haven't played well. They've won when they played very well. They've just kept going and going, and they've got a couple of players who are really, really good. I particularly like the midfielder. I can't pronounce his surname. His first name's Ivan, and his second name begins with V. He's a superb player, and he'll go much like I look at someone like Alex Robertson, or someone who I think is going to go and play Premier League football at some point. Like, he's very much in that sort of mold, and the individual matchups all across the pitch for this Saturday are going to be really interesting, because those individual matchups, those duels, will ultimately probably decide the game. Because I hope the game isn't won on a mistake. I hope that it's won with a better quality, because I think both teams have got quality in the attacking areas. And I'd rather, if we're going to lose, I'd rather lose to something a bit special than a mistake or a set piece. But look, there's a certain amount of skill to a set piece, I suppose. But both teams are rumored to have a few injury problems. I'm not sure how much I believe either, to be honest. I say all the time about press conferences, never believe a word of them. But Jack Moylan has rumoured to be not training this week, just like Kellyman and Dylan Lawler. It would be from a Cardiff point of view, particularly for this specific game, I would be very disappointed if we do not have Amari Kellyman, because I think this game specifically, Hamer and Sonny Bradley would rather be up front against a more traditional number 9 like a Yusuf Salic or even a Callum Robinson. Don't think they'd want to be up against someone who's going to drag them out of position and then have runners and people playing in half spaces and stuff. So I'm kind of interested to see which players make it and which ones are legitimately carrying knocks and stuff like that, if that makes sense. What do you think? Do you think there's a bit of mind games there, or do you think they're all being honest and they're all going to miss out?
100% mind games. I think you're never going to play your hand until an hour and a half before a game when your team sheet's going to be in. Listen, we've known it before. We've been on the receiving end, or we've also done it ourselves. Players will travel, whether they're fit, unfit, tired, unwell, whatever it may be, and they'll be getting put in cotton wool, won't they, for the night before. And when you've got such a big player like Moylan is for them, when you've got someone like Kellerman, let's not forget Kellerman actually travelled with the team on Saturday and he was there. You do wait till the 11th hour. And listen, I think Saturday maybe some of the selections and some of the ways the decisions were, when we were 2-3-0 up in regards to Dylan Lawler's case, you then start looking at this week. You then think, actually, let's take him off, let's rest him, let's get him some ice. We talk about possible injuries that they've had in the past, like with Dylan's growing and Ruben's growing and things like that. You do have to look at that as well. I just genuinely think that there's mind games going on between fans, and this is what adds to the spectacle. Sky Sports are playing the whole, they're spinning the narrative for their views, and dare I say it, I think this is the biggest game, or one of, if not the biggest game in all of the football pyramid this weekend. All eyes should be on this kickoff.
100%, mate. And I knew, in one way, and I said this to Jake in some of the content which we filmed, which is coming out over the next couple of days. I'm gutted that it's not a 3:00 kickoff on a Saturday. Like, I'm gutted that it's on at 12:30 on Sky, because I do believe, like, if this was a 3:00 Saturday kickoff, it would be full house, absolute jam packed. And look, I'll never criticize people for missing a 12:30 kickoff on a Saturday, because ultimately it's the worst kickoff. I'm lucky now. My kids have grown up. My younger one plays football on a Sunday, so it doesn't really affect us. But we did struggle last year on a Saturday when he was still playing on Saturday, because you're not done in time to get through the traffic and get over. And it's like, well, what do? Do your kids let down their teammates who they play football with every week, or go to? And it's a difficult one. So I understand it, right? But hopefully, we've sold loads of tickets. I know there is starting to be. I've been hit up a few times already today. Like, people are starting to find it difficult to get tickets, which is usually an indication in it that they're gone well. From a Lincoln point of view, mate, I wanted to talk a little bit about them, because I feel at the start of the season, I thought they were very comparable to, before they played us, I thought they were quite comparable to Stevenage in a lot of ways, from a physicality point of view, from a set piece point of view. They were, they want to get the long throws, they want to get the free kicks, the corners, etc. But I think they've evolved a lot as the season's gone on. And I can't remember. I watched a game where they were away from home. They won 4-1. It was, I don't know, about a month ago probably now. And the speed at which they won the ball in midfield around halfway, and the speed that they got it up to the wingers, in behind, and real skill and ability. And I think anyone who just thinks they're a slightly better version of Stevenage is really doing them a disservice. They're a very good football team, particularly for this this level of football. They know the drill. They've got some players in their team who are very experienced, the likes of Adam Reach. Their right back has won the league, won League One before. They've got lads in their team who've been there and done it, but they've also got some good footballers who can hurt you, other than set pieces. And of course, we'll talk about set pieces in a bit, but it would be, you'd, like I said, it'd do them a disservice, but you'd also be, harming yourself if you underestimate it, thinking that they've got nothing to offer from a footballing point of view. However, saying all that, in my opinion, they have the advantage at physicality, then they have the advantage at set pieces. We have the better footballing team, in my opinion. We have the better footballers, and we certainly have more depth in our squad. Regardless if a couple are out injured, we have ridiculous depth in terms of who we can bring off the bench. You know, like even if use Callum Robinson as an example, he starts for pretty much every other team in the league. And, you know, he's regularly on the bench for us. You know, it's not inconceivable that we could have Ruben Colwell on the bench on Saturday. I don't think we will. I think he starts. But, you know, Callum Chambers has got an England cap and he's played Premier League football for Arsenal and Villa. Like, there's a lot of experience there in, granted, over only a few players, but we have got experience in the right areas. But we have some tremendous footballers, and we have a group of footballers who, let's be realistic, you know, they're not going to be playing at this level for very long. So do you think it's a case of, will their physicality and set pieces be the difference, or will our, in my opinion, technical ability be the difference?
I think we
obviously
talked about
not
it.
As simple as that, mate. I understand that, but you know what I mean.
It's not, but there is avoidable aspects. You know, look at when Stoke City and the Tony Pulis, for example, sides would find ways to avoid giving them throw-ins because of, you know, how good they were at that. Sides like are trying to do that with Arsenal now in the Premier League, trying to avoid giving corners. Naturally, you've got to try and avoid their main threats, like they'll try and nullify ours. If they do score a lot of goals from set pieces, credit to them. We concede probably a fair few from set pieces. That's going to be a glaring, you know, need or a desire for them to do. And this is why they are where they are. Like John said there in the comments, you know, there is going to be a conflict of styles, but the difference is who applies their style better on the day. You mentioned about the fundamentals. If you don't win an aerial battle from the first moment, they're going to bombard you constantly. If you're not going to be, you know, running for 50-50s and jumping in for the 50-50s, the mental aspect is huge. And it could be a fine margin game. It could be the 1%ers, mate, where they might get a rebound or a lucky ricochet and it goes to them. You've just got to be the best version of ourselves. And I think the best version of ourselves is energy. Energy. I think if we're able to get down the sides, if we're able to pick up the tempo, I believe our fitness and our quality will prevail. If we slow the game down and we go a bit sort of side to side, a bit of lethargicness and allow them to get into a structure, we talk about the spine, you know, it genuinely will help them. It'll benefit them. We don't want them to be, they've got a few aging players. Now, that's not to say they're not fit, but naturally they'll tire. And we've got a bench that we can hopefully get impact off the bench. So we've just got to be the best version of ourselves. I know they've got threats. We saw that when we were up in Sinsel Bank. But we've just got to be the best version of ourselves like we did last week. And I think we'll get an early goal and we'll be on our way. That's my hope anyway.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things where, interestingly, a bit of a spoiler for the video which is out tomorrow, the Jake, who's obviously a Lincoln fan, he's coming down on the weekend, he spoke very highly of Cardiff and some of the individual players. I asked him, one of the questions I asked him during the preview is, what element of Cardiff's game do you fear, or what is it that, like, if you think, or if they get that right, we're going to struggle? And he said, paraphrasing, basically, if we move the ball quickly and we play a false nine, he thinks that's the sort of thing they may struggle with or have struggled with previously. And when we're at our best, that's what we do, is we move the ball quickly, we move it off, minimal touches, lots of movement off the ball. You know, Ruben, I thought, did an excellent job as the false nine on Saturday against Doncaster. So if it is him rather than Kellyman, because Kellyman's injured or he gets selected above him. But then even saying that, what was interesting with that element was Ruben and Joel kept switching who was doing that role. So you imagine how difficult it is to mark a false nine anyway, because they're not staying in their position. When then you've got two players changing and deciding who's going to do that role. And Ruben was happy to come so deep to get the ball or to come into the half space. The centre-back, you could see him. He was like, do I go? Do I stay? Like, where am I going? I don't want to leave him, but I also don't want to leave this big old gap. And obviously Robinson goes into a kind of gap that gets created by other people's movement. So I'm genuinely fascinated by it, mate, and how it's going to all play out. I just feel like, going back to what I said at the start of the show, I just feel that BBM and the players will want to almost make a bit of a statement, or I don't want to say prove a point because they got nothing to prove, but I feel that they would look at that Lincoln game in the first game and just think they weren't at their best overall, even though the goal we scored was probably the best goal of the season, as in terms of a team goal.
Yeah, I agree. We look at their 17 games as we speak unbeaten. Naturally, your bubble's got to burst at some point. Hopefully, it is this weekend. But off the pitch, both managers deserve a massive amount of credit. There's a reason why their manager was linked with Leicester and various other championship clubs. He's had to buy his time, and Lincoln as a fan base, I think their player Drinkwa said there was a stat that years ago they only had 3,000 fans. Now, to put it into context, how they've grown as a football club, and credit to them, they're bringing 3,000 fans to us on the weekend. And I know people say it's their big day out and whatever, but it flips, doesn't it? The coin, like we'd be the same if we were like sort of little Cardiff going to a big club, and I just think, I looked earlier on about how we start games and how we finish games. And I think someone said, we've conceded 4 goals in the first 15 minutes of games this season. Now, I don't think we can genuinely do that this week, because if we do, my worry is that they'll be very, very compact. And I think there was a stat I looked at, the game 1-0. Now, apparently, Lincoln have won in 12 games to 0, which is 35% of their games. In comparison to that, and this is how tight it is, we are also the same statistically, apparently. 34 games, 12 wins, we've won to 0 at 35%. Now, it is a game of fine margins. It's crazy, mate. And like I said, if you are into the betting odds, there was something where both teams to score this season, Cardiff have conceded and scored in 19 of their 34 games this season. Lincoln have played 34 and scored and conceded in 17 games of their season. So this 1-0, I don't know. I don't know if it'll be 1-0. I just hope it was a spectacle. The stadium's bouncing. Both sets of fans are going at it. They'll probably have another drum in the away end, which is brilliant, because I know that annoys some Cardiff fans, that away fans can bring a drum in the away end down Cardiff City, and we can't even bring as much as a bottle of Pepsi in an away end away. But, mate, it's just, like I said, be the best version of ourselves. Be the best version of ourselves, and I think we get over the line. By hook, by crook, we get over the line.
Yeah, we've shown as well, mate, that we can win in different ways. We can be at our best from a footballing point of view, but we can also show a bit of grit and a bit of fight and stick together and find a way to win. We've got players who can produce out of very little. I think Isaac Davis being out is a blow, particularly late on in the game. I think his pace is a genuine threat late on, and maybe Callum Scanlon becomes that at the weekend. So, obviously not up front, but through off the left maybe. So there's always that from a pace perspective. I'm really excited for him, mate, I've got to say. And I think both managers are not the type of managers to go there and settle for a point, even though a draw is almost like the worst result for Bolton, Bradford and co, all the chasing teams. Like they really want one of us to lose. So, because we got a game so quickly afterwards as well. If a team does lose, it's how do they react? Can they recover in time in a couple of days? Both got quite tricky games on Tuesday. We're away at Barnsley. I think they've got Exeter, which is a tough one. Any away trip, I think, midweek is tough in League One anyway. So, it's a question for you then, just off the cuff quickly. Would you take 4 points from the next 2 games if I offered it to you now?
100%. I think, however that comes, I don't know. I'd prefer if it was a home win and an away draw, of course, because then that gap then is extended to 4 points. It's a tough one. Listen, you just mentioned about their away trip to Exeter. Exeter's got all their former managers back there now, isn't they? And they've just been handed their backsides to them on the weekend against Bolton. this league's a funny league. It really is. I know they're 17 unbeaten and credit where it's due, but they've had to ride their luck out at times. They've won games 1-0 where things have hit the post and things have gone their way. We found that sometimes luck runs out, and all it takes is a dubious penalty decision or a fluky goal or whatever it may be to sort of upset the apple cart a little bit. We always say, don't we? We've dealt with adversity quite well this year. Whenever we've lost, like at Plymouth most recently, we've found a way to come back. They haven't had that as of yet. They haven't had that. So that'll be intriguing for them. Like we mentioned the spine earlier on, Si.
Yeah.
My thing is, how long can their players play with the amount of minutes that they've been playing? And I don't mean to wish injury or anything like that on players. Their physios and whatever must be doing a bloody good job for the likes of Sonny Bradley, who is, in no disrespect, a very experienced aging player, to have played nearly 3,000 minutes. They've got, I think, in the top 24 of the EFL, they've got 4 players, including their goalkeeper, to have played the most minutes in the league. In comparison, the most minutes our player has played is Nathan Trott, who's 33rd overall. So you can see that they aren't rotating maybe as much as us, but they're doing it their way. And I suppose you've got to give credit where it's due from that.
Yeah, of course you have, mate. And I think, like I said to you just before we started about that, is there's 2 ways of looking at that. On one side, you say, well, that's why they had done so well this year, because their spine is the same every week, the same centre-backs, the same midfielders. It's the same every week. They understand how they're going to play. There's a lot of cohesiveness there. But on the other hand, at some point, those players will feel that. And maybe a game like us at home is a real difficult game because they won't have, you'd expect at least that we'll have the majority of the ball. We'll shuffle them about and we'll move them up and down and side to side. And does that catch up with them? And we've seen over the years and history of watching football, mates, not just Cardiff, but, all the football we've watched over the years, big games, adrenaline and things like that can have a big impact on games, whether it's a mistake, whether it's a sending off, whether it's a rush of blood, just something, concentration, whatever it may be. Now, we can only base what we've seen from this Cardiff team this year. There hasn't been much of that. We've had the odd mistake, of course. That's, part and parcel of football. But I can't remember us losing our heads very much. Even when we've been down to 10 men, even when we haven't got ridiculous penalties, even when the referees' decisions have gone against us, even when Yusuf Salic was stretchered off and, you could visibly see it had affected some of the younger lads who were, close by. They still, as soon as that whistle blew, they were just phenomenal in the way they finished that game. And I think every test they faced, they have stepped up to. And, failing is part of being a human being. And sometimes you will fail no matter how hard you try. But the response has always been sensational. And I got a feeling in my water, as my nan would say. But I ask you this every week, mate, but I'm going to, rather than ask you just to name your sort of team, I wanted to ask you, before we get to that, ask you about some specific aspects of the game and some where you would like to see it go, or maybe what you would pick if you were in Brian Barry Murphy's team. So we know Lincoln are very strong with set pieces. Was it you who said we should move the advertising hoardings in closer? I was speaking to someone the other day. I can't remember who it is. We should move the advertising hoardings in closer. We should have equipment and stuff around the sides. Just make everything tight around the edge of the pitch within the rules. But, don't, roll the red carpet out for them and make sure they got a nice dry ball to have these long throws. Because we know Hamer's going to, at every opportunity, he's going to launch it into the box. So make it difficult for him. Don't let him get a run up. Make sure there's stuff in the way. But, maybe sometimes we're too nice as a club these days. And, you shouldn't be sometimes. But anyway, we know they're going to be strong from set pieces, for instance. We know they're going to be physical. What centre-back pairing, if you're BBM, what centre-back pairing as of, Thursday today, where are you leaning? If all 4 are fit, what's your 2?
Will Fish with Osho, I think would be my 2. I think we can probably get in behind them with that long diagonal ball. I think we can probably be exposed in terms of trying to play out with them. They do like a high press. It's not as if they just sit deep by any stretch of the means. I just think we can get in behind Darinka on the right-hand side, and I think we can get in behind their left back with our pace out wide. However, with that being said, Gabe Osho has shown that when he's just, like I said earlier on, the destroyer, just the out-and-out defender, do we look at putting, if Dylan's fit, do we allow Dylan to have another masterclass at home? Being confident on the ball, he brings other people into place, and he's already shown that link up with Alex Robertson. Who am I to say no to that? So it's one of the two, isn't it? I think it's, for me personally, it's Osho with either Will Fish or Lawler.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think Fish is in there for me. Like that's one centre back nailed, because I think I agree with you completely. His diagonal balls, but also his ability to attack the ball and his physicality. He puts his body on the line, etc. Not that Osho doesn't do that, but I think Fish is like the perfect balance of what we would require. I'm a big believer in you play your best players, and look, I would be a bit of a hypocrite if I sat here and said like I wouldn't play Dylan, because Dylan I think is like one of the best players in the league. But you do have to do sometimes horses for courses. Dylan had a tough night against these in the first game. So a bit like you, I would consider Osho and Fish. I think if everyone's fit, I would lean to Lawler, I think. But I could definitely make an argument for Osho and Fish. So just to clarify, because a few people have asked, Dylan Lawler and Amari Kellyman are not ruled out. They just haven't trained at the moment. It's going to be decided over the next 48 hours, if you believe the press conferences, that is. But they haven't been ruled out. Isaac Davis is definitely out. He's got a hamstring issue, which he picked up the first day back in training after his concussion, which is like devastating for him. But at least it's only a couple of weeks. Right. Wide areas. Fullbacks, you go in the usual, Bagan, NG, or you got a little surprise up your sleeve, because they've got Hackett I think it's Riley Hackett, I think his name is. He's a good winger, like a good footballer. But I don't really fancy the guy on the other side. So yeah, talk to me about the fullbacks, where you go in, and how do you see that playing out? Because NG his form has just been ridiculous.
NG is undroppable for me at the minute. And we say this with 12 games left of the season, without a contract news or anything like that. He is just excelling. And to be fair to him, he's had to do it the hard way, because, like we always say, big shout out to Roland Capacchio, because at the start of the season, who would have thought we'd be in a position now where we are? Listen, I think we all know what Scanlon can do. But you'd have to ask, is this a game for an out-and-out sort of solid defender? Or is it a game that you want to see a left-back bombing up and down the line and probably getting exposed behind us? I listened to their manager, and he said he knows the ways to hurt us. Well, genuinely, I personally feel the way to hurt us is like Plymouth did. Direct, early down the sides of us, and you'll get in behind. That's just my opinion. I think we've been exposed a few times this season when we've gone quite high on the transition with Perry NG and Joe Bagan on the left and right, respectively, and then the ball's gone in behind. Scanlon, I would definitely bring on with 20, 30 minutes to go and just get up the line. But I think, long story short, like John's just said there, NG and Bagan, I think for me, they know the way of playing. They know the BBM way. They've also played against Lincoln this season, albeit Joe, I think, went off at half time, which we didn't know if at the time was an injury or if it was because of the game, the way it went. But yeah, that's who I play.
Joe Bagan's been so reliable this year, so consistent. I said in my player ratings video after the Doncaster game, just like he had 7, I think he had 7 out of 10. It's like Joey Sevens, I call him, because he just 7 out of 10 every week, just bang, 7 out of 10. And sometimes people mistake that as like, 7 out of 10 is good, but it's not like elite. But if every one of your players has 7 out of 10 every week, you're going to win the league. Like 7 out of 10 is pretty much above average, isn't it? Well, it is above average by the law, by mathematics. I tend to think I would lean towards Bagan. I am really looking forward to seeing Scanlon, and I think he gets his start against Barnsley. But depending on the game state, 20 minutes, 30 minutes to go, I wouldn't be shocked if we saw Scanlon come on the wing, just because he's so quick. And that could be for either reason. That could be because we're winning 1-0, or that could be because we need a goal. I could make an argument for either, to bring him on the wing. Same with Capaccio. I think I'm going with those two at fullback, even though Scanlon, I think, will play before long. Midfield, my opinion, Wintle Robertson picks himself at this point, but I'm open to suggestions and other opinions as always, because we do have a bit of an issue. It's a good issue, but we do have a bit of an issue in that Robertson's on fire. Wintle is the glue that holds it all together. Ruben is back looking very sharp. Joel Colwell's been in electric form. Well, 4 players does not go into 3 midfield positions. Now, if Kellyman is out, I think that kind of frees that conundrum up a little bit, because Joel and Ruben can do the sort of false 9 job. But where do you sit with it? Do you think you'd have to leave one of them on the bench, or are you trying to get all 4 in there?
I've said it the last few weeks. I think we offer a different dynamic with almost like a false 9 or 2-8s, whatever you want to call it. I feel that, especially with 2 big centre halves, the last thing or the worst thing we should be doing Saturday is looking to go direct, because I think that's just that's bread and butter for Sonny Bradley, as we saw. I think you can't drop Wintle, in my opinion. I think we've seen the good and the bad in terms of when we played at Plymouth, albeit it was away. But we didn't almost have that defensive solidity, that sort of I don't know, like someone in front of the defenders who was able to just cut everything out and just play. Alex Robertson at the minute, big shout out to him. He's been phenomenal. I mean, we've all saw that video on Twitter where the guy was saying about how he's changed his game this season, what I like about that is what Alex Robertson is showing is the modern way and the way to receive a ball. It's not like in years gone by, we've seen players taking 3 or 4 touches, not checking their shoulders, and they've gone back because they haven't done the initial check. Whereas Alex Robertson turns on the 45 degree, he's always scanning. And that's what I think we're starting to see, the link-ups, because he's able to see the picture before painting it. And then he starts painting it afterwards, and all of a sudden he's gone from in his own third, he's in the attacking third, and he's getting on the end of the balls from Dylan Lawler. And then it's brilliant. I think you then play. I wouldn't be against playing Joel, if I'm honest, just because I think with Joel's engine at the minute, Joel Colwell you can ask him to just do anything and he will be there everywhere. And his stats in terms of, all right, he's not getting the goals that he would love, but he doesn't care about that. You can speak to Joel. He's team first. And, we saw that at Rotherham away in the 93rd minute. He's running back 50 yards to make a crucial tackle when you're 3-0 up. We saw it at Doncaster. He's quite happy to put his head in where it hurts, and he's not afraid to sort of put his back in against a defender so he can win a free kick. I'm all for that. That is if Kellerman's not starting as a thing. And then obviously Ruben would be in that position instead of Kellerman for me. But isn't it a great position to have, a disposition to have a few headaches now going into Saturday?
God, yeah, because, if Kellerman's fit, I'm thinking we got to play him, the form he's in. And then you look at it and you go, well, I can't drop Joel because of the form he's in. Can't drop Ruben, he's the captain really, and he's come back on fire. Can't drop Alex Robertson because he's on fire, and we can't drop Warren Wintle because he is the glue. And then you're like, right, well, maybe we could put Kellyman wide to accommodate everyone. And then you go, well, Tanner's got, a ridiculous amount of assists since he's come back. And then you look to the other side, and then you're like, well, Kean Ashford showed how vital he is on the weekend. Not just with his intelligence off the ball and creating space for others, but his defensive qualities. And you're like, we've got a mad squad. And this is without Salic and without, David Turnbull, we haven't even mentioned this evening. Like, we've got an incredible amount of players who can change games, Callum Robinson, and it's going to be real interesting. But just to I don't know, put a bow on it, I guess. If Kellyman's fit, what's your kind of midfield three and then the front man?
So we're going what? We're going Wintle as a 6, Robertson as an 8. Joel, I think, plays alongside Robertson. I just think they've just got a good cohesive play at the minute. I'm going Ollie Tanner on one wing. I'm going Cian Ashford on the other. No disrespect to Chris Willock, but I think just Cian Ashford, it was great to see him get a goal the other day. You know, he's worked his backside off, and you can see that, you know, we talked about earlier on in the show about youngsters. He's not had it easy, and he's not, because he's one of our own, got special treatment by any stretch of the man. You know, BBM has left him out of the squad, so he's been on the bench, and he's had to almost keep him hungry. But I don't think that's ever an issue with Cian Ashford. I think Cian Ashford will run till everyone tells him to stop. And I think that's what we need Saturday. I think he helped Joe Bagan on the left-hand side defensively as well. He's not afraid to run back. And if you play him off the left or you play him off the right, he does his defensive duties. And then, Omari Kellerman, who's scoring goals for fun. Why would you drop him? You know, if he is fit, he surely has to be one of the first names on the sheet. With the option of maybe someone like a Ruben Colwill, who is probably just as good and just like for like, to come off the bench maybe. Because I do find that for us especially, whilst we don't always blow teams away initially in games, I feel like we're winning games with massive impacts off the bench. And I think that's what we might have to do on Saturday. I think we might have to earn our way, do the fundamentals, be at it for, say, 60 minutes, and then all of a sudden unleash the beasts off the bench and just go at them and test their hamstrings with our pace.
So I tend to agree with a lot of what you just said, really. I wouldn't put Ruben on the bench, but maybe not for the reasons that people would assume. Like, everyone knows I'm a big fan of his, blah, blah, blah. His technical ability. We know how good he is. We know the form he's in. But the reason I think he has to start is because Yusuf Salic is out. And I don't know whether people realise how many defensive headers Ruben and Salic win in our box. And when you look around our team, we haven't got a load of tall players. Kellyman wins a few headers, mine defensively, but I think I would think it's fair to say Ruben probably would win a few more. I think I would play Ruben from the start if Kellyman's fit, not simply because of that, but I think because that would be an extra reason to play him because of the set piece threat. I'm also chomping at the bit to see Omari Kellyman with Ruben in behind for a sustained period. Now, yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Because you can't fit everyone in, really, if you want to do that, because I think Kellyman's got to stay central. I don't really want to see him wide unless he's going to be very versatile in where he's drifting about and stuff. And then if he does that, like he's coming very central, it means that you haven't got the protection and the support for Joel Bagan like you get from Cian Ashford and like you get from Omari when he's played wide. So the manager will get it right, and the manager will have a plan. I think that's what people should also remember is Brian Barry Murphy. Very rarely have I turned up to watch a game, mate, and thought we look like we haven't got a plan or we look like we're uncoached. Now, previous to this season, uncoached was a word I used a lot. Not this season. Like, we always look like we've got a plan. Maybe the plan doesn't always work and the plan's got to change during the game, but we have a plan. In some of the home games against some of the harder or like the perceived harder teams or teams that we're expecting to start fast, we've gone quite direct in our build-up. So when it's gone back to trot, instead of trying to play out from the back early in games, we've gone a bit longer. Now, I don't think that's the worst idea, but not like we'd play into Yusuf. Like, we would quite often do it to Yusuf and then try and win the second ball. I think you've got to be a bit more sneaky with it, and Trot's got to get the ball under control quickly, and then if he's going to play a bit more direct into the feet of Kellyman, Ruben, etc., and then play off them on the halfway line rather than lumping it up and asking them to win a header. And we don't want them to be contesting for the ball physically. We want them to be getting it to feet. And making the Lincoln centre-backs have to deal with the movement of the ball, I think. Let's talk a little bit about Callum Robinson, mate. The manager spoke very highly of him in his press conference, but he did seem to sort of intimate, paraphrasing a little bit, but that he sees him as a bit of an impact player, which I actually agree with, and I think is not the worst, the worst thing, because I think Callum is having an impact when he's coming on generally. I think that goal against Doncaster will be a weight off his shoulders. Do you see a world where Callum Robinson starts on Saturday? I know obviously he could, but do you see do you expect to see him on in that starting 11, or do you think there's a couple probably in front of him?
Yeah, I think there's a few in front of him, and it's probably more harder to say that because of the role that Robinson's taken on this year. I think we wouldn't be this successful if there wasn't a buy-in from everybody. Uncle Robbo, as they all called him, and things like that. I think the key thing is for him, he was our highest impact player per, off the bench up until Isaac Davis took that mantle off him. But, he does buy his time, and I think, listen, he isn't maybe age probably isn't on his side or anything like that. But the one thing you'll get with him is this buy-in and this passion for other people to succeed, which I love. And you can see that whenever he's running up and down the sideline, and whether it's the 83rd minute or the 33rd minute, he's still cheering the boys on. And I think that's his role this year, probably similar to Callum Chambers to an extent. Players that arguably would love to play more, and greedily and selfishly, that's what we want. But they haven't thrown their toys out the pram. And I know we've said that a few times this year with reference to years gone by. But there is a buy-in, and I think that comes from the manager. And I think that because the manager doesn't leave any stones unturned, I think that, like he says, up until Friday, Saturdays, and Friday nights and stuff, players are still none the wiser if they're playing. He's keeping them on their toes. He wants them to train hard. He wants them to play hard. And listen, if Callum Robinson starts and scores, then I'll be eating my words and fantastic. I want the best for him. But as of yet, it was great to see him score the other day, and it was the best thing about it was the reaction of the players afterwards. It was really telling to see his role in that team when Ronan Capaccio and several players went up to him and said, go on, son. And again, I think I said it the other day, 94th minute, to many people, when you're 3-0 away from home, go to the corner flag. You could tell he wasn't. He was chomping at the bit to get that goal, and fair play to Callum Robinson, no matter his role, he's buying in, and that's all we can ask for.
Yeah, 100%, mate. And the other thing with Callum Robinson is when he scores one, he tends to score 5 and 5 most of the time. So, what a time to go on a bit of a goal-scoring streak now. So Jake Bayer is a Lincoln fan, but he is all right. Jake is. We filmed a load of content last night for a couple of hours. So tomorrow we've got a preview out with Jake, which is a bit longer than normal. We've also got tomorrow afternoon, then, so that's out at lunchtime. Then tomorrow afternoon, we've got our combined 11. So my combined 11 was made up of Trott, NG, Lawler, Fish, Bagan, Robertson, Wintle, Ruben, Tanner, Ashford, and Yusuf Salic. I think that's fair, to be honest with you. I think that's I think everyone can say that's right, and I think that's the correct choice. But no, look, the combined, I don't actually like combined 11s because you're always going to go for generally the players from your team or the particular fans are. But we just thought it was something different that we could chuck up. I tried to get a couple of Lincoln players in mine, and Jake tried to get a couple of Cardiff players in his, but you're never going to, it's subjective in it at the end of the day. So you're never going to keep people happy in that. So we got that. We got a combined 11 tomorrow afternoon. Tomorrow night is the normal tactical showdown with me. And then Saturday morning, me and Jake went through 3 individual matchups from the game. So sort of where we think the game might be won and lost. And yeah, look, I really appreciate Jake's time. I did the preview with him as well for his channel. So make sure you check it out. And yeah, we could be friends again after Saturday. But he's been getting all sorts of grief because he put a combined 11 up on him and his mates, and I think he had like 2 Cardiff players in it, and it was, but it's subjective, mate, isn't it? Like,
it is, but what you've got to say is, and Jake spoke on another pod as well, and is, listen, he, like we would be, he can take that stance because of how well they've done and how well they're growing, and fair play to them as a club, a community club. They've got a solid structure in place now, and they've got a new ownership and things like that. And that's the brilliant thing is, I think this is why this game is so special, because it's 2 teams who are there on merit. And again, we're so evenly matched. When we look at now over the year, like points per game at home for Lincoln at 2.39 and away 1.79. For us, points per game at home at 2.53 and away from home 1.71. The overall, literally, is 0.003 difference between us and them. And that's why I said it's like tooth and nail. We average 2.12 points per game. They average 2.09. They are honestly, they're just brilliant. And again, this is not me being a brown nose or anything like that. You have to give credit where it's due. Would I be saying that if it was them lot down the road? No, I definitely wouldn't. That would hurt. But they have matched us, and I think this is why this season is so enthralling for us more than anything. Because in seasons gone by, would it be as enjoyable if you're 15 points ahead of second or whatever? I don't think it would, and I think you'd probably have a lapse of energy, maybe a lapse of quality from players, a bit of complacency, maybe. But this season, we've got somebody literally right up our backsides that won't leave us alone, and it's like you're still trying to chase, you're trying to get to that finish line. But where is that finish line? Is it going to be the last game of the season up in Mansfield where we've got to, get something at Mansfield? Who knows? But it does add to the whole sort of the event that's going to happen on the weekend.
So I'll tell you this: I had a text of a friend of mine who works for a very large broadcaster in the UK, and he said, if we take 12 points, he said this is what he thinks is going to happen. He says he thinks Cardiff will take 12 points in March, which is just below your current average points per game, etc. That puts you on 84 points. He said Bolton on average pick up 8 points, which puts them on about 69. That's 15 points clear of third with 6 to play. So he predicted that we will secure promotion, automatic promotion, on the 3rd of April at home to Port Vale. And then I responded and said, yep. And then hopefully we'll secure the title away at Reading to then be presented the trophy at the following home game, which is the last home game of the season as well. And I would love that, mate, because I'll be at Reading. So we'll particularly love that. But ultimately, mate, it's just about getting promoted. But, I'm greedy. I want to win the league.
I think everyone does. So I think, when you've been in our position for so long, you've been the rabbit of it, and then sort of you're flying. It's that old tale, isn't it? It's not, I suppose, how you start a race; it's how you finish it. You've got to finish it, and you've got to keep that same pace. To be fair, we've only had 2 blips since December the 20th. We've had 2 losses, one of which was against them on that date, and then Plymouth. That is brilliant form. Yes, we picked up draws in there, and yes, we haven't played brilliantly every game, but we've done it our way. I know I've made reference on previous shows about how, like, Birmingham City, for example, spent 30-odd million last year, and I know we all want the new toys, and we want a new thing, but legislations and rules change for us. It feels like sometimes that there's maneuverings and mechanisms around rules and regulations that people do, and every football club has it. But this year, we weren't able to go and spend that amount of money because of a slight change and things like that. But we've done it our way. We've actually got the silver lining of having the youngsters. And if we do go up, and when we go back up, these young players won't be young anymore. They'll be experienced because they would have already had 40-odd games under their belt at arguably a more physical league. So when we go into the Championship, all we need then is a different type of player. And then again, this is where we start talking about when we get up, we've got to have a plan. And as a football club, hopefully now we're being more proactive. We've got a manager that we really do like and we love, and we feel like and hope that he's not going to be tempted to go elsewhere. We've got a manager that we can build something from. we've got this brilliant fan base that now we're starting to see like a lot more Q&As as we speak now. I think BBM's doing a Q&A up in Tom Pentra Football Club. So that's great. Get him in the valleys. Get all those fans that were, probably supporting Cardiff for years, but then because of all the red and things that haven't come back, get them back, and let's get this stadium rocking like hopefully it will be Saturday, like we've seen in the Chelsea game, because we can play our part like we've been doing. And I know BBM made reference to that in his press conference today, that the fans are thoroughly deserving of what they're seeing at the minute, because at the end of the day, the players play for us and we support them. So hopefully we can keep going.
Oh, mate, 100%. Just got my blood boiling, that has. Wes says 3-1 City, and will we finally get a penalty? Nah, we're going to win the league without having a penalty. Here's a question for you then, mate. You may or may not know this off the top of your head. How long is our unbeaten home record currently?
We're way. Yeah, I can't remember the exact stat, but we flying. Like our last home games, like last 8, we've won 7, drew 1, plus 13 goal difference. So when do we last lose the home game? Was it Bradford? Was it? Yeah, it must have been, because we haven't. We've struggled away. I say struggled. We've stuttered away from home. But I think our last home defeat, it would have been Bradford or someone like that, where we dominated and we just got, off Burton. There we are.
Of course.
When we went 1-0. Yeah, lost 1-0 that night.
Is it 12 games, JT says there?
Yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, you kind of forget it, didn't you? Because when you have all these run of games on the road, and I suppose the little bumps in the road have been when we're away from home. The home form is not a talking point. It's just how good we are, and I think again we can use that Saturday to our advantage. We've got a great playing field, in terms of what Liam James and the ground staff do there. It's a brilliant stadium. We hopefully, if we win that toss Saturday, and we attack that Canton stand in the second half, I genuinely think it will, mate. Like, I know the drum's not everyone's cup of tea by any stretch, but bang that bloody drum as much as you can. Keep singing, keep cheering, and hopefully, like I said, come 3 o'clock, quarter to 3, whatever time the game will finish, we'll be on the winning end, and we'll see 3,000 imps going home, kind of upset with a bit of, almost thinking, what if?
Yeah, right. Guys, you can have 5 minutes to get as many questions in as you want, or ask any questions, and then we'll answer them to finish off. And then whilst we wait for a couple of questions to come in, James, what I want to do is a bit of hypothetical. The one aspect which Lincoln haven't had to answer is what happens when they do lose. What happens when the unbeaten run does finish? Like, we've seen Cardiff's unbeaten run come to an end. They've reacted, and they reacted well, and that's happened a couple of times at different times in the season. If we do beat Lincoln at the weekend, they have a game against Exeter straight away. If that doesn't go, if they get a draw or something on Tuesday and they've suddenly lost and then drawn, Bolton, Stockport and Bradford, etc., they're going to be rubbing their hands thinking, they're going to fall apart now. It's a big mental test, of course, on Saturday for both teams, but it's not always the test of the game, is it? It's the aftermath of what happens. And like Jake just said there, they haven't lost back-to-back games all season. So it'll be interesting, because that would give the indication probably that they're similar to us. When they have had a bad result, they've reacted really, really well. But I think it is a question, when you've been on a run that long, unbeaten, I think it's only fair to ask the question, like, what happens, if they do lose. Now, I think it's going to be a really difficult game for both teams. I think we will ask them questions, they will ask us questions, and ultimately it will come down to who's got the answers, right? And they've got some players who I think could cause us some problems. And I hope, touch wood, I think that we've got so many players who will ask questions that I think we're very difficult to stop, providing that we have the right tempo in terms of how we move the ball. But yeah, what do you think about, like I said, all of that?
Yeah, I think, dare I say, I think they might want to slow the game down. I think they, like you said, it's a theme, isn't it? If they score so many goals from set pieces, we saw it with Neil Warnock. At the end of the day, there's a way of winning games, and that's the best way that you can do it. You don't have to make 55 passes to score a perfect goal. You saw that last night with Man City drawing against Forest. Sometimes it's just hard work, a bit of kahunas, and a way of playing and a buy-in. And I think that's what Lincoln have got. They don't have to be spectacular, but they can be effective. And I think that's what they are. They're very effective. They're a very efficient side. And like you said, we at the start of the season, kind of when we were adjusting to the BBM way, we were all a bit frustrated with passing around the back and trying to go backwards and sideways. Then we upped it a little bit, and we kind of learned the grasp of it. Then we started seeing a bit more penetration, and we were flying. And I think, again, there's what Jake's comment. It aligns what we said in regards to if they score first, they're very hard to beat. They will happily sit in their blocks. They are well coached. They are very good. Yeah, I'll get some questions flying in now. There you go. So I'll let you get to these questions. Yeah,
that's where we go. All right, let's finish off with some of these questions then. Dylan says, do you like BBM? I'll let you answer that first, mate, because everyone knows that I got a bit of a man crush going on.
What's not to like about him, eh? Like any adversity, he comes back in, and in the next week, it's forgot about, isn't it? So, mate, he's going to go down as probably, albeit a shorter tenure at the minute, but he might be one of our best managers we've had in a long time.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I did a video on him 6 months before he came in, saying that the club should get him in some fashion. And that's not, I don't say that to, to blow my own trumpet. I say that because I believe that this guy's special. And I believe that with the young players that we had at the club, he was the right man to get in at the club in some fashion. Now, little did I know that 6 months later, he was going to be our manager. I believe it's the perfect storm. It's the perfect manager at the perfect time, with the perfect kind of group of players to get the best out of them and him. Morgan says, do you agree with the championships going to 6-team playoff next year?
No, I mean, again, I always say, why mess around with something that doesn't need to be messed around with? I think someone has said it hasn't been changed in the like early 2000s or late 90s, whatever it is. You're used to that. And it just feels like the powers that be at the minute are just messing around with things based on what? Entertainment, money. What is it?
It's money, innit?
Revenue. And again, like this is, I think we've seen with this, it doesn't matter what the average fan says or that the paying fan, they don't listen. No. They don't give two craps about what fans do, as we've seen with all the 12:30 kickoffs on Thursday nights. Fans are secondary, funding is first, and I think that's what it is. And Morgan's a good mate of mine. He always comes away on the away games, brings the noise and whatever. So yeah, next year, I mean, I probably won't be saying that next year when we're 8th in the league and we get in the playoffs.
That's exactly what I was about to say. When we're sneaking in the 8th position, like.
But that listen, I think a lot of people said no to it, but again,
it's needless, isn't it? It's needless. And for me, the thing I love about football is that over a long season, you will find out who is the best team, and you win the league, or you get promoted, or you get relegated, or whatever it may be, on merit, on application, ability, consistency, all these different metrics. And that's why we love football, right? But then also in the things like the FA Cup and knockout tournaments, you get those special one-offs where, a team beats a team from 2 leagues, 3 leagues, 4 leagues above them, or top of the league, or whatever it may be. Like, you get those special one-off occasions, the giant killings and things like that. And that's what football's special because of things like that. And I just think there's no need to change it. I felt the same about the Champions League. I don't know why they changed it. I haven't watched the Champions League barely since they've changed it, because I find it really uninteresting. There was nothing wrong with the Champions League format. They changed it. There's nothing wrong with the playoff format. It is perfect the way it is. And now they're going to change it, and it is what it is. But like you just said, when Cardiff finish in that 8th place next year, we won't give 2 hoots.
No, and again, like I just to elaborate on what I said, I think the National League's a perfect example how you could be a couple of points off, say, getting into the automatics. You've done it over the 30 or 46 games or whatever it may be. But then somebody who maybe the gap might be 20 points between third and eighth or whatever it is. But that team all of a sudden picks up a run of form in the last 3 games, gets in there, and all of a sudden then goes to Wembley and wins against the third team. You can't fathom it. But again, like we said about if it's not broke, don't fix it. We're seeing the impact of not having replays in FA Cups, which I think is a farce again, just to suit the big boys of football. Well, we saw with Macclesfield and other teams who have seen their gate receipts because of the FA Cup, keep them alive. So again, it just feels like at the minute football is more commercialized as opposed to what the working man's game was and is. But again, that's just me having a little Thursday night rant. So we'll move on to the next question, mate.
That's where we are. But just lastly on that, mate, I think the fact that they put games on and the game's going to finish, they make the kickoff time for TV and the game finishes after the last train, and they do that often around the country, tells you everything you need to know about what they think of match-going fans. Yeah. We always have been an inconvenience, always get labelled as this, that, and the other. And it's a real shame, but it is what it is. Morgan has a good question, this one. If Yusuf comes back before the end of the season, do you play him again or do you keep him on the bench as we've scored a lot more not having him fit? So basically saying, would you bring him straight back into the starting 11 once he's fit and firing?
I've always said this, and I think it's because of the way the managers approach this season. You have to warrant it. I think that's the fundamental. I think you have to deserve it. Yes, he is still our current goal scorer, top goal scorer. Yes, he brings a lot of quality. Yes, we love him. We're not here to sort of disregard any of that. But if you want Yusuf to come back in, he has to be mentally fully fit, and I mean that because of the injury that he's had is really, really really horrible, and it takes a lot to get over mentally. Physically, he has to be there. And selection-wise, if you're a player who's been told all season that you're there based on merit, and then someone comes back in just because they're the top scorer, how would you then feel? So I think that they're the 3 caveats I'd look at it. But listen, he was scoring all the time. Yes, we love you, Yusuf, and we hope he gets back to the Yusuf Salek that we do love. But for me, I think it depends on the game as well. I think if you're playing against 2 6'5" centre halves, is there a risk of him reoccurring this injury? That's my word.
Yeah, I think there's that element. Number one, don't bring him back until he's 100% healthy, fit, and psychologically ready as well. Because if you haven't seen it or you didn't see it at the time, it was a very, very traumatic incident. It was horrible, and I say that as someone who it was horrible to watch, let alone go through it. And I'm pretty sure that for at least a short while, he would have thought he had broken his neck or done something much more serious than what he did. So you got to give the guy time. Like, at the end of the day, he's a human being. He's a quality footballer. He's by far the best number 9 in this league. And I think, as an example of what you were saying, James, if he was fully fit and ready and playing, I wouldn't start him this Saturday against Lincoln. So I think you've got to go horses for courses, and he's a great option. It's just a squad game football now, isn't it? There was a question gone. I've lost it. Gavin says Nathan Trott could be the difference for our win on Saturday. Do you agree? I do personally. I think Nathan Trott's the best goalkeeper in the league by a country mile. So what about you, James? Do you think he can be the difference? Because their goalkeeper is very good as well. Yeah,
he has to be. At the end of the day, I think we've talked about their threats. So, you've almost got to be that old school sort of goalkeeper, haven't you? You've got to be commanding. You've got to be assertive. You've got to be confident. And I'm sure Gavin Ward would have sat him down this week and said, this is what they're going to bring, because he obviously didn't play away at Lincoln. So, it was Matt Turner in that game. Listen, Trott is fantastic. He's probably been one of our better keeper finds in years. Yes, at the minute, sometimes his kicking is a bit up for grabs, but listen, what's a goalkeeper, as Nigel Clough's dad used to say, or Nigel Clough used to say, was it just the goalkeepers for saving? That's all it is. Save the ball, keep it out the net, and is it Brian Clough? Sorry, it is me. Brian Clough said it, didn't he? He said goalkeepers are there for saving, and I know that because a friend of ours, Johnny, he used to say it all the time. That used to be his gig. He used to tell him about the goalkeepers, mate. But Trott, with la 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 la.
Love it. Lee says, do you honestly believe we'll see Yusuf Saleh again this season? Yes, I do.
Yeah, and I think he deserves that sort
Moment.
of yeah, he does. And I think again, it sounds daft, but if he is on the bench, you know that when he goes up and down that touchline, fans are going to be singing. It just gets atmosphere, doesn't it? Yeah, and it does. It ups that feel, doesn't it? And again, like, you know, imagine being that player who, you know, when certain subs do it, they send a substitute out down to the ground just to get some
to get the
atmosphere
crowd going, don't they? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what Yusuf could be. And I think, listen, there's nothing better than seeing Yusuf Saleh jumping around in the centre circle or whatever when Cardiff City TV are there videoing him and all the players around him to do the whole celebration. So let's hope that if he does come back and when he does come back, I'm sure all the players will be buzzing for him and he gets that moment that he can savor and he can enjoy.
Yeah, I said the other day I had a bit of a hunch that he might be on the bench on Saturday. It sounds like it's probably going to be too soon, but what a lift that would have been, like, psychologically for everyone. And like you say, you just send him out to warm up every 10 minutes. Every time the crowd goes a bit quiet, when you just send him out. Also, my favourite song alongside the Colwell song. So, although Robinson's song is great as well, man. We need a song for Alex Robertson. Like a proper good one.
They sing it, don't they?
They let it going on Saturday.
Yeah, listen, I think it's great, isn't it? You've got the Kean Ashford, you know, imagine being one of your own players. Yeah, and just you come out the ground and you can't help but sing it and it's in your head for a few days.
100%. Let me just double check. We've got any questions. Geraint makes a very good statement. He says, important our fans are the 12th man on Saturday. We need to be heard and not allow their fans to be noisy. Well, their fans are going to be noisy regardless. There's 3,000 of them and they're going to have had a few beers and they're going to have travelled up and like it is what it is. But what you do is you feed off that and you make sure that, at times this year, I think I've said that I felt particularly early on in home games, sometimes I felt like the crowd is almost waiting to be entertained and waiting to, go ahead, almost like they're expecting it. Can't have that on Saturday. We need to be bang up for it from the off. Get behind the boys. Just check there's no more questions because I don't want to miss any. I'll ask you a question then, James, to finish, which kind of goes into some of the stuff that people are talking about. Do you prefer us, generally speaking, with a traditional number 9 or the false 9 system that we've scored bags full of goals? Just in terms of a spectacle.
I like this new Cardiff City, if that makes sense. I like this. We've been accustomed to having this sort of physical, direct approach, add it in and what have you, with the type of players that we've had over the years. But when you've got youngsters, you want to see that flair and you want to see that link up. And we're seeing, like, this cohesion and this lovely way of playing that we're getting the rightful plaudits for. And, I like this false 9, 2 8s, whatever you want to call it, because it just links up so well. It's so smooth. When you said about the Kellerman-Colwell situation, well, Kellerman's played right. He's played 10 and he's played a false 9 this year. And when he played that 10 role, I remember one pass he made. He turned on the half and he just pinged it with his left foot. Ollie Tanner, bang. And I think, it wasn't Ollie Tanner. It was one of the other wingers. Can't remember it. And I thought, you know what? That's special. This is that's it. And it's just like, this is a new Cardiff City. This is somebody that, as a team that you can develop. You can entice new players in and you can really get behind because it's not direct and it's not boring. And listen, everyone wins in their own way, but this is our way. And this is the way that we've been used to playing now this season for 30-odd games as we stand.
Yeah, and I mean, that false 9 system, what it does is it feeds into the strengths of our players. Technical ability, movement off the ball, quick passing, quick interchanging, and just take teams apart that way. And a great example of that, which takes us sort of round full circle, really, is Perry NG's goal against Lincoln in the first game. That is BBM ball. One touch, boom, boom, boom. And then when you're in the pressure situation, which, Perry NG bearing down on goal, doesn't panic, just composure and just a little dink over the keeper. That's what I want to see. And that, by and large, is what we do see most of the time, in fairness, especially with that system. But that's what I want to see Saturday. Fast passing, lots of movement, loud crowd, big game. And like you said, they're going to try and slow it down. So I think we've got to speed it up and we've got to keep going. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. Jamie, seeing as you won't be on a video or anything before Saturday or before the week game, give us your prediction for the game. What's the score going to be?
I'll go with Sienna's always says it. She says it 2-1, whether she's right or wrong. I've got a feeling Ollie Tanner's going to get a goal. I think we've seen all the assists, and I think he's brewing something. I think he deserves a goal, and I think he deserves his moment in front of the Canton stand. Other goal scorer, that'll be a tough one. One of the Colwells, I think. 2-1 home victory.
They've been on fire, the Colwells, in fairness, recently. Both of them, since Ruben's come back, he's been excellent, and Joel's just been sensational. Like, very difficult to pick a team in that central area at the moment for Cardiff, so we shall see. You'll have to wait and see what my prediction is, but you'll be surprised to know that I went for a Cardiff victory nonetheless. Right, Jamie, as always, mate, thank you so much. I am already looking forward to speaking to you next week, where we'll have 2 games to discuss. And thank you to everyone in the comments, even and the Lincoln fans as well. There's a few of them in there. A few of them are joined throughout. And obviously, you could check out my preview with Jake, which is out at 12 o'clock tomorrow. And then 3 o'clock, we've got the combined 11 video. And then we've also got the tactical showdown tomorrow. BBM versus Scabada 2. Big up, Jake. And Sue from Nappa's podcast as well. They are a good group. A good bunch. I really got a lot of time for all of them. Yeah, it is what it is. Like, we'll be enemies for 90 minutes, but I got a lot of time for the way Lincoln have played this season and their unbeaten run and everything about it. But I've been impressed by their fans. Like, they're knowledgeable. They're not on the wind up all the time. There's going to be a bit of banter in it. You got to have that. Otherwise, what's the point? But I got a lot of time for the people who I've met from Lincoln, so indeed. But anyway, 3-0 Cardiff. Come on. This channel is powered by an incredible membership community on Cardiff City World and patreon.com/AcePodcastNation. Becoming a member unlocks exclusive rewards from early access to live event tickets, bonus content, and even the occasional inside transfer scoop when we get it. But more importantly, it allows us to bring you top quality Cardiff City content 7 days a week. Across those 7 days, we're talking match previews, exclusive interviews, instant match reactions, the breakdown podcast, tactical deep dives, the spotlight series, Bluebirds Rewind, Academy Focus, and just so much more. Led by myself, backed by an army of passionate Cardiff City fans, this is content created by fans, for fans, balanced, professional, and 100% all about the club we all love. If you enjoy what we do, then join the community today and support what we are doing as we help to keep Cardiff City World flying high. Top man, mate.